Hi, welcome to Pastor's Corner. My name is Brian Rutland, one of the pastors at Southside Bible Church, and our text today is from John chapter 4, verses 46 to 54. And our topic is what I'm calling the crisis of faith. And it plays out so wonderfully in this text. It's the second miracle second sign in the book of John. And it's when God puts us in a situation where we want to kind of control and look at something seen for confidence. And God so wonderfully removes everything but Christ. And it's really a picture of, I think, the gospel as a whole. What this crisis of faith drives us to is real faith in Christ. And so I just want to read the text, and then let's talk through the story briefly. John 4:46. Therefore he came again to Cana of Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And there was a royal official whose son was sick at Capernaum. When he heard that Jesus had come out of Judea into Galilee, he went to him and was imploring him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. So Jesus said to him, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe." The royal official said to him, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Jesus said to him, "Go, your son lives." The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and started off. As he was now going down, his slaves met him, saying that his son was living. So he inquired of them the hour when he began to get better. Then they said to him, "Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him." So the father knew that it was at that hour in which Jesus said to him, "Your son lives." And he himself believed, and his whole household. This is again a second sign that Jesus performed when he had come out of Judea into Galilee. So in addition to Christ, our main character is this royal official. And he is, we don't know if he's a Jew or a Gentile, but he was probably sort of powerful, maybe a wealthy man in service of maybe King Herod. But whatever he was, the bottom line in this context is that he was a dad. And he had a son who was right at the edge of death. And so his son is sick in Capernaum, northeast of Cana. And Jesus is coming up from the south. He's come up from Judea into Galilee, and he's there in Cana. And this man comes from Capernaum to Cana. Different estimates I've read, maybe between 15 and 25 miles from Capernaum to Cana. And he comes to find help for his son. And he comes to Jesus, and he is begging him. He is imploring him, pleading with him for these two things: to come down and heal his son. He wants Jesus to come with him from Cana to Capernaum to heal his son before it's too late. And how could we not identify with that? Doing anything for a sick child, doing anything to help them to live, to make it through this illness. And so Jesus responds initially in verse 48. He says, unless you people, Jesus is speaking directly to him, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe." Which probably indicates that this royal official was coming to Jesus not as Messiah. He was coming to him as miracle worker, in a utilitarian way. I need your services, and I'm here to beg for them. And here's what happens. Jesus doesn't do exactly what he asks him for. Because right after Jesus says that in verse 49 again, the royal official said to him, "Sir, come down before my child dies." And so there's an urgency, there's a right parental panic in this royal official's heart as his son is dying, and Jesus seems like his only hope here. This is what he gets. He gets 4 words from Jesus. Jesus says, "Go, your son lives." And I want us to see in verse 50 that this is the crisis of faith, right in the middle of verse 50. Because I want you to think about this. He's, let's say, 20 miles away. He's probably traveled for at least a day, maybe 2, to get from Capernaum, where his sick son is, to Cana, where Jesus is. And when Jesus answers, "Go, your son lives," there's this inherent crisis potentially in this man. That's not what he asked him for. The royal official did not ask him to just heal his son. He asked him to come with him to heal his son. And so think of it this way. He's come all this way. He has Jesus' attention. He has a forum with this miracle worker. And so the question is, if I leave and I go back to Capernaum, what if this doesn't happen? What if I've lost my chance to get the miracle worker and take him to Capernaum to heal my son? And that is really the crisis that on one hand seems terrible. Jesus won't go with him. But on the other hand, it really is a beautiful crisis. Because what Jesus does is he so wonderfully orchestrates this situation where all the royal official has is Jesus and what he said. He doesn't get to take him with him. He has to actually leave believing that this is true. And this crisis is perfect to refine and to bring out what true faith is. And in this context, it's when you've got nothing except what Christ says will happen or has happened. And so he's calling this man, he's calling this royal official to believe in him more than just as a miracle worker. I want you to go back to Capernaum, and by doing that, you've got to express faith in me. You've got to trust me. And so look in verse 50. Go, your son lives. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and started off. And I think from the later on in the context, this is not necessarily saving faith. This is some kind of a believing him that I'm willing to go. And he travels for 2 days to get back to Capernaum before he meets up with his servants to find out what happened. And I want you to think about what might have gone through that man's mind as he hurries back to Capernaum with 2 thoughts pulling him. My son is dying. Jesus said he lives. My son is dying. Jesus says he lives. That walk back must have been a flood of emotions and questions. As he goes, he's expressing some form of trust, and then he gets the servants that meet him, and they say, your son is alive, and they trace back the time to where exactly the hour that Jesus has said your son lives, and boom, there it is. That's when he was healed and his son was alive. Look at the fruit of what comes out of this. Verse 53, so the father knew that it was at that hour in which Jesus said to him, your son lives. And he himself believed in his whole household. That seems like when salvation comes to this man. He trusted him enough to leave and go to Capernaum, but now he gets back and he realizes that Jesus is more than a miracle worker. That crisis of faith has caused him to trust Jesus as Messiah and as Lord, and his whole household believes as well. So the fruit of the context is this man's salvation. But I want us to think about it in terms of the gospel. I love the crisis of faith. I love it in my own heart. I love it in this text. I love whenever God orchestrates a situation where you've got nothing, but you've got Christ, and in that you have everything. And it really is what the gospel is all about. The gospel is us being in a terrible situation. We've sinned against a holy God. We can't do a thing to remedy that situation. And Jesus comes and he says, I'm the Messiah. I'm the anointed one. He lays down his life for our sin. And he says, you come to me and I'll give you rest for your souls. Trust in me and I'll forgive you. And there's the crisis of faith for each one of us. When we came to Christ, we want to do something. We want to go somewhere. We want to cling to something tangible to assure us that this is right. It's going to work. And Jesus gives us nothing but a resurrected Christ. He gives us nothing but the cross. And in giving us that nothing, he's giving us everything. The crisis of faith is really the essence of what faith is. Think about Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That man That royal official walking back to Capernaum for a day, day and a half, he's hoping for something. He's hoping that that son is alive. And he's convinced that though he can't see it, he's going to walk back hoping that this is true. And that's the gospel for us, the conviction of things not seen. I can't see Christ, but he's left me with the cross and with his perfection as the God-man to lay down his life for sin. And so every time somebody comes to Christ, they come through this crisis of faith that Jesus offers just himself, just the unseen Christ, that we would believe, forsake all else, to have this treasure. And that's perfect. That's the way that faith so wonderfully glorifies Christ and so wonderfully empties us of all self-righteousness, all self-confidence. It just gives us him. And when we have just him, we have enough.